You are listening to Reduce the Stigma, a CJ106 docu-series funded by the Community Radio Fund of Canada. This series aims to provide information on local services, bring to light the work of healthcare professionals, and most importantly, reduce the discrimination faced by people with direct lived experience with a mental illness.
Hello, my name is Jan Eck, and this is Reduce the Stigma. We hope that you find this series on mental health resources in the Westman region both informative and helpful. We are glad to be bringing to light many issues of mental health and wellness, a topic that in the past had long been discussed in hushed tones or suspicious whispers. Today it seems we are beginning to open up a bit about mental health. We want to talk about it because it is something that affects all of us. The more we can talk about it, the more we can destigmatize what we previously held as fearful or unknown, or as something that other people went through. For someone who may be suffering from a mental illness, talking about it might mean that some people are listening. It could mean that their concerns are being taken seriously, but it definitely means that they are not alone. Chances are you or someone you closely know currently lives with a mental illness. Yet, despite an explosion of information in popular culture surrounding mental health and well-being, stigma remains a barrier to diagnosis, treatment, and community acceptance. By promoting resources that can help people, by discussing the nature of mental well-being, and by listening to the stories of people living directly with mental illness, we hope to demystify the experience and reduce the stigma against those suffering from very real medical conditions. In this episode, we will be learning about anxiety, specifically anxiety disorders, and in just a little bit in our feature interview, I will be talking with Director Mary Williams of the Anxiety Disorders Association of Manitoba, in which she will inform us on the condition and the treatment and the importance of public awareness. Anxiety disorders are the most common reported psychological concern. Many of us face stressful and at times extremely demanding environments, and the anxiety that is normally produced motivates us to react to our situation. For some of us, prolonged exposure can lead to debilitating physical symptoms and paralyzing and frightening psychological states of mind. 1 in 4 of us will experience this condition in their lifetime. Anxiety disorders are several and distinct and very real. They include social phobias. Perhaps we feel those more than ever. Perhaps more than ever, we feel under the microscope and pressured to perform under the watchful eye and the all-pervasive and intense social media scrutiny. Specific phobias fall under the anxiety disorder umbrella. They are irrational fears of an object or situation that doesn't really pose a real threat. Agoraphobia, or fear of being in certain spaces like public places or crowds, is one example frequently and specifically mentioned in anxiety literature. Panic disorders are often reported. Repeated panic attacks that occur out of nowhere and the sense of life-threatening danger and fear of having them again characterize this condition. Anxiety disorders also include post-traumatic stress disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorders, and others such as substance-induced anxiety disorders, separation anxiety, and selective mutism. The research surrounding anxiety disorders does not suggest one single cause, but a variety of factors. Are presented as likely indicators. Underlying medical health issues are understandably a common cited cause of an AD. There is research that can link ADs to genetic inheritance. And as well as social attitudes and relations within the family unit that may cause a child prolonged exposure to anxiety. Witnessing a traumatic event, excessive stress, substance abuse, other mental illness, especially depression, and even certain personality types have been cited as risk factors for developing an AD. The variety of treatments for anxiety disorders are very effective, from mindfulness-based stress reduction and cognitive-based therapy to effective medication, and relief from anxiety is entirely possible. Seek treatment if you feel that worrying is interfering with your work or relationships and that those feelings are out of control. If anxiety is leading to physical symptoms or is occurring with other mental illness, or if you have suicidal thoughts, please see your doctor. ADs are easier to treat if recognized early. Okay, without further introduction, we will feature our interview with Mary Williams, Executive Director of Anxiety Disorders Association of Manitoba. She will be able to expand upon what we know about this very common condition that so many of us can relate to and what help is available to those afflicted by ADs. Okay. Well, let's start with a brief introduction. Your name and position with Adam, and perhaps your education or training and what led you to work with Adam.
My name is Mary Williams. I am the Executive Director of the Anxiety Disorders Association of Manitoba. I have worked in social service and community health organizations for about 25 years and have, over the course of that time, taken numerous courses on both physical and mental health as well as palliative care. And my personal position is that there is no physical health without mental health. It's all connected.
In this section, we will briefly provide a general overview of Anxiety Disorders Association of Manitoba operations. Is there a mission statement?
There is. Actually, it's a mission vision, and our vision is to reduce the impact of anxiety disorders on the lives of all Manitobans. We aim to offer self-help for all Manitobans affected by anxiety disorders. We provide cognitive behavioral programs and ongoing support groups for the prevention, education, early intervention, and management of anxiety disorders, and we provide resources for children, adolescents, adults, families, employers, and healthcare professionals.
What is the organizational status of ATOM, and where do you receive the most funding?
We're a registered charity. We receive base funding from Manitoba Health through a service purchase agreement, and we are very grateful for that. It covers basic expenses. We have a very lean budget, and none of our people work full-time because of that. The funding for self-help peer-led organizations across the country is very limited. So in Manitoba, we're ahead of the curve, but certainly it's still quite restricted. We rely heavily on donations that enable us to expand some of our services and to increase the scope of what we do. And on occasion, we receive grants from various foundations for specific projects, although these grants usually are time limited to like a one-year pilot project.
Okay. Is there fundraising as well?
We do some fundraising. We don't have the staff to do a lot of fundraising. We are looking at doing more fundraising, but normally you need a staff person to kind of lead that, and we don't have anybody on staff to do a great deal of that. We're very stretched.
How are people generally referred to ATOM, and what can one expect when contacting the association? Who will they talk to? Trained counselors?
No. People can self-refer, and a lot of people do. Sometimes people Google anxiety in Manitoba, and we're the first organization that comes up. And it's a really important thing to note that the first contact for people who have been experiencing anxiety is often a very big step in the whole process of addressing their anxiety and starting to move towards recovery and finding resources, because people self-limit and self-stigmatize, and they are often really afraid and really nervous to make that first contact.
Yes, I hope to talk more about self-stigmatization later on. Yes,
right,
that's really interesting.
So people very frequently contact us directly, but we also get people telling us that their doctor told them to call us, or their psychologist or their psychiatrist told them to contact us, their mental health worker. So it's from a wide range of sources, but people don't need any kind of formal referral. They can just contact us directly, and we'd be very happy to hear from them.
Before we move further, let's talk a little bit about anxiety itself. How is anxiety positive, and when does it become a problem? Is it a mental illness?
Well, let's just talk about the fact, first of all, that anxiety disorders are the most common mental health concern in Canada, that 1 in 4 Canadians will experience an anxiety disorder in their lifetime, and that at any given time, 12% of the population in Canada has an anxiety disorder. So it's very widespread. A lot of people do not know that it is as widespread and as common as it is. So anxiety itself is normal. We're all, as human beings, structured physiologically to have anxiety. We all experience anxiety in certain situations. For example, if we're riding a roller coaster, before a job interview, before a big exam, it is very normal to experience anxiety. And anxiety is adaptive. It helps us prepare for real danger. So you're walking down a forest path and a bear jumps out of the woods, and anxiety helps us to respond appropriately because it triggers our fight, flight, or freeze response and gets our body ready to defend itself.
Right. I was experiencing heavy anxiety just before this interview because I knew my time was a problem, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
I was, figuring out ways and how to better adapt myself to that situation. What
Hmm.
were strategies in order to solve my problem? So the anxiety was kicking in and really forcing me to think about my situation.
Yes, yes. So anxiety can be helpful to us. It becomes a problem when our body reacts, but there is no real threat or real danger. And it might be helpful to think about anxiety like a smoke alarm. A smoke alarm can help protect us when there is an actual fire, but sometimes the alarm goes off when there isn't a real fire. For example, there's burning toast in the toaster. Like a smoke alarm, anxiety is helpful when it alerts us to a real danger, but if it goes off when there is no real danger, we may want to fix that.
Right. I imagine, what people might want to do to their fire alarms when they go off unexpectedly.
Well, we don't want to take the batteries out of the alarm in case there's a real fire, but we do want to fix the alarm so that
Right.
it doesn't go off every time we make toast, right?
Yeah.
So anxiety is really helpful and it's really important, but when it becomes chronic, when it becomes intense, when it interferes with our life and prevents us from doing things that we either need to do or want to do, that is when it becomes a problem and it may become an anxiety disorder.
Does it do specific things to the physiology of a body?
Absolutely. It most certainly does. So there are a wide range of physiological reactions to anxiety. Some of them tend to be more specific to one kind of anxiety disorder than another, but some of the things that happen are a racing or a pounding heart, sweating, shaking or trembling, shortness of breath, possibly chest pain or discomfort, chills or hot flashes, nausea, upset stomach,
Loss of
dizziness,
appetite, right?
loss of appetite, derealization, which is a sense of things being unreal or feeling detached from yourself, numbness or tingling sensations. Some people are afraid of losing control or going crazy. There's a fear of dying for some people, feeling irritable and on edge all the time.
Does prolonged exposure to anxiety lead to more serious physical and mental health issues?
Well, prolonged experience with anxiety can lead to development of an actual anxiety disorder, such as panic disorder,
Hmm.
social anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, phobias, sometimes post-traumatic stress
Right.
disorder. So prolonged experience with anxiety when that smoke alarm keeps on triggering, okay,
Hmm.
can ultimately lead to the development of some kind of anxiety disorder.
Right. So this underlines the importance of treating anxiety.
Absolutely.
Right. So this leads me to the next question, and obviously, how is anxiety best treated?
Well, there are certainly a variety of very effective evidence-based treatments for anxiety, and one of them is cognitive behavior therapy. Cognitive behavior therapy is an evidence-based psychological treatment that has been developed through decades of scientific research, and it's very broadly used to treat anxiety and other mental health issues. It is one of the most effective treatments for anxiety. It also is an effective treatment for depression, chronic pain, disordered eating, anger issues, addiction, and those kinds of things. Cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT, provides us with a new way of understanding and thinking about our problems and provides us with skills to deal with issues that we struggle with. It is offered in both individual and group settings. It can be done with a trained therapist through one of our groups, or you can do self-help on your own through web-based CBT programs. And it incorporates education about anxiety, quite extensive education, because it's really important to understand what is happening when you have anxiety, relaxation strategies that are proven to help manage some of the symptoms of anxiety, realistic thinking as opposed to catastrophic thinking, and I'll give you an example of that in a minute, and facing fears or exposure therapy in gradual steps. There is unhelpful and unrealistic thinking and more realistic and balanced thinking. So, for example, unhelpful and unrealistic thinking would be, I always screw things up, I'm such a loser, what's wrong with me? That is an unrealistic and unhelpful thought. A more realistic and balanced thought would be, well, everyone makes mistakes, including me. I'm only human. All I can do is try to fix the situation and learn from this experience.
Yes, instead of
very different way of thinking.
Right, instead of going down a rabbit hole of self-doubt and basically that would probably spiral.
It does spiral. So another example is very often people will think, I cannot do this. I feel way too anxious. Why can't I control my anxiety? There's something really wrong with me, is the unrealistic and unhelpful thought. And the more realistic and balanced thought is, it's okay and normal to feel anxious. It is not dangerous, and it doesn't have to stop me. I can feel anxious and still go to that party.
Right. Yes.
Okay? So cognitive behavior therapy is a very effective treatment for anxiety. There are other things that people are recommended to do in terms of treating or managing their anxiety. Exercise is really important. There is some research underway that is demonstrating very clearly that exercise helps to reduce the impact and the symptoms of anxiety. Eating well is very important. Sleeping well is important. Some people find that journaling or writing down how they're feeling is helpful. Visualization is helpful. Calm breathing, deep muscle relaxation. And then there are some other things that many people find helpful in terms of just getting organized. Just getting organized and getting rid of the chaos and the disorganization. It certainly helps to feel less anxious.
Right. When you're more organized, there would be less things to worry about. Well, theoretically, yes.
Absolutely. Routines are important for people with anxiety. It's helpful for people to know what they can rely on, stable factors such as eating meals at a particular time, going for a daily walk, reading every night before you go to bed, because it helps provide stability that helps to counteract anxious feelings that unexpected events may provoke.
Unpredictability might be a trigger, or...
Unpredictability and uncertainty is very difficult for people with anxiety to manage, yes.
Okay.
It's certainly a big challenge. The other thing is that it's important to schedule some free time so that, we're not under stress all the time. Free time gives us a chance to check in with ourselves and see how we're feeling, and to plan on putting energy into addressing our problems rather than letting them stew in the back of our head.
Right, and I think of words like ruminating and overthinking.
Yes, indeed. The ruminating and overthinking are absolutely part of specifically generalized anxiety disorder, which is ruminating and overthinking, and not being able to free ourselves from worry. It's really worry about any number of things. You can worry about what if this happens. What if are probably the two words that are really most problematic for people with anxiety.
Right.
What if I don't pass that test? Then maybe, I will fail the course. And if I fail the course, they'll throw me out of the course, and then I won't be able to get the job. And if I don't get the job, then I will end up in poverty and living on the street, and I'm going to become a bad person.
Yes.
And so, it goes, this what if just keeps on going
Right.
down that rabbit hole. What if is really a big problem for people with anxiety.
Okay. I was wondering, is there anything else you would like to talk about in terms of treatment or therapy?
Well, certainly there are professionals, mental health professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists, mental health counselors, psychiatric nurses. For some people, medication
Right.
is a consideration. It's a very kind of individual decision that needs to be discussed with a medical person. So there is that route, and there's also either in addition to or rather than the formal healthcare system, there's also organizations like ADAM that are community-based self-help, peer-led organizations. And we work in partnership with the formal healthcare system, but some people who come to us prefer not to engage with the formal healthcare system. It depends on your circumstances and what you're looking for.
Okay.
And what your needs are.
Right. Adam's website provides a great deal of information about specific issues related to anxiety, including information about children with anxiety about technology use. So smartphone separation is an issue for some people, trying to get their social media addictions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really tough to leave your smartphone. Uh, and there are so many supportive events in Winnipeg as well that I've read about on the website, such as the free anxiety screening with
Mm-hmm.
psychologists on site.
Mm-hmm.
There's also an evening of storytelling and song. I know there's so much more in Winnipeg, but I wonder if you would like to highlight anything that you would find that you find especially interesting for our listeners.
Well, some of these events have already occurred through our Mental Health Week, which was in earlier in May, and there will be other events coming up, particularly in October through Mental Illness Awareness Week. And our events are listed on our website, and there are a lot of interesting events, including public workshops and seminars that will be coming up primarily in the fall, and we will be looking at providing a public event related to anxiety and chronic illness and pain, and anxiety and caregivers in the fall, in October. We plan on doing another public screening event, and that will allow people to approach a psychologist and talk to a psychologist in a private setting about whatever their concerns are with no charge attached, and it makes the psychologist very accessible and available. Sometimes it takes a long time to get in to see a psychologist, so this makes that service and that resource very accessible and available, and the psychologist can provide some guidance and direction about what routes might be most appropriate or what channels might be available for people. So those are just a couple of things that are coming up in the fall, and I would suggest that people check our website for other events.
What about the services available now in Westman?
Well, we have an office in Westman, and we have an outreach worker there, and we provide cognitive behavior programs for generalized anxiety, support groups for people on an ongoing basis with respect to anxiety, one-on-one peer support to whatever degree and level is available in terms of the time that's available. Educational events in Westman as well, specific to the area, information and referral and public education events as well. So again, people should be checking our website and connecting with our Westman office for the specifics about what's available in Westman.
Okay, I mean, earlier on you told us that anxiety is the most common mental illness. Because it is so common, I would think that a lot of people could relate to it. But does social stigma affect those who have anxiety?
Absolutely. People with anxiety often feel that, particularly before they have reached out for any assistance, that there is something uniquely and seriously wrong with them, and that if other people knew what they were thinking or what they were feeling, that they would be judged very negatively. And what tends to happen is people judge themselves very negatively, and often that prevents them from seeking help until their symptoms are so severe and they're so uncomfortable that they feel that they don't have any choice. They need to do something, and they often reach out in desperation. By that time, quite often the anxiety is fairly well entrenched. And so there is a lot of self-stigma, but it comes from inaccurate information and lack of awareness. And that is frequently perpetuated by the drama that is portrayed around mental health issues or mental illnesses in movies or in media, and there's a negative kind of attitude, belief system, language, or behavior that is conveyed about mental health issues that goes back, historically.
Oh, yes.
A lot. And I think that for a lot of people in people's minds, they are worried, and this is what people tell us, they are worried that they're going crazy because they have severe anxiety symptoms, they're going to lose control, something horrible is going to happen. And I think that what they're envisioning is kind of like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest,
right.
Which is so far from reality.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's entrenched in our memories, and unfortunately, we still have a long way to go to kind of get past those negative beliefs and those negative perceptions about mental health issues.
Okay, so society is also important in someone's self-stigmatization, but also society itself. It says has messages like "suck it up, Buttercup."
Absolutely, absolutely. Mental health issues, depression and anxiety in particular, not so much some of the enduring mental health issues like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, but certainly with depression and anxiety, they're invisible, and people can often still function to varying degrees, and they can talk and they can smile and so forth, and they're invisible to a large degree. So there isn't an understanding and a recognition that mental health concerns and mental illness like anxiety and depression is an actual physiological condition that involves parts of our brain, that involves our body, and that it's something that needs to be addressed and treated just like any other illness. Whether it's anything from the flu to cancer, people acknowledge and recognize that those things need to be treated.
And sometimes mental illness can be so debilitating, like worse than physical symptoms or physical ailments.
Yes. Mental illness can, if it's not treated and there isn't early intervention, it can progress to be very debilitating. Let's take panic disorder as an example.
Sure.
If someone has a panic attack, and lots of people have a panic attack, but if they have panic attack and then they start to worry that they're going to have another panic attack and they start to become hypervigilant about anything in their body that might signal that there's another panic attack coming, they're in a state of constant hypervigilance and being hyper alert about what's going on in their body, and frequently will misinterpret what is happening and will move from a panic attack into a mode where they have frequent panic attacks, which then becomes a panic disorder. Mm-hmm. And with a panic disorder, it's not uncommon for people to start to avoid the places where the panic attack occurs, and to start to avoid places where they feel they can't easily leave, like elevators, for example, or where they feel that there isn't immediate help available. So they, like on a university campus, they might avoid going to kind of a remote area of the campus, because if they have a panic attack and they feel that they need help, there might not be anybody close by who can help them. If that progresses, it can progress to the point where people develop agoraphobia. And so with agoraphobia, if that's not addressed, if that progresses, then it's possible for people to eventually find that their world is shrinking into, smaller and smaller dimensions, because they are afraid that they're going to have a panic attack, and so ultimately they have a safe place, which might just be at home, and they feel that they can't leave home. Or I know of somebody who feels that he cannot leave the city. He has panic disorder and agoraphobia, which he is managing, but so far he is unable to leave the perimeter of the city, because once he leaves the perimeter, that's when his panic and his agoraphobia kick in. So his goal is to drive increasing distances outside of the city. So stigma is very real. There's self-stigma, but there's absolutely stigma from other people, and it's a fallacy to think that, just get over it or just buckle down and get over this. It's a physiological reality, and there are parts of our brain involved and chemistry in our body involved, and so it's not a matter of being weak. It's not a matter of being a malingerer. It's a very real issue. It's a very real condition.
Right. And further to this conversation, to other people living with people with anxiety, it can get a bit annoying, I am sure. I can tell you my own anxiety situation where just before the interview, just making sure I had the time to get to this interview, and I was just kind of frustrating my partner quite a bit, because he was realizing that you can do this, and I was just overreacting probably. Mm-hmm. So for people living with people with anxiety, do you have any suggestions?
Yes. There are a couple of things, but certainly one of the first things that I would suggest is that people become informed and educated about what anxiety is and what the symptoms are and what the behaviors about or surrounding anxiety look like. That's the first step, is to become informed and educated about what this is. Just like if somebody in your family is diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, for example, you would do the research to find out what it is, what you can do to be helpful, what to avoid, all of that kind of thing. So as a family caregiver or as a friend, it's very important to become informed and educated, and also then to have a supportive and patient attitude, which is a result really of becoming more informed and educated.
Yes.
There are also, in various locations, there are support groups for the family member and friends of people with anxiety. And so I think it's important for family members and loved ones to find support for themselves, because just like living with someone with physical limitation, it puts extra stress on the family member to be living with someone with an anxiety disorder, especially if you don't understand it. And sometimes if you don't understand what's happening, it can be not only frustrating, it can be frightening, and it it can result in some very strange things happening. You know, if you don't understand it, for example, and you have a child or a young person with OCD who has a variety of different rituals that they, because of their anxiety disorder, feel that they must perform before they leave the house to go somewhere, to go to school in the morning, you know, you might, as the mother or parent or sibling, you might find yourself getting up at like 5 o'clock in the morning in order to help this individual through their morning routine so that you can get out of the house by 8:30. And so everybody's going, you know, short on sleep. So that's one real example, actually. And it's a matter of, as a caregiver, as a caring person, learning about and educating yourself about what the anxiety disorder is, what the typical symptoms are, and what some of the helpful or not helpful behaviors are, and looking after yourself as well.
Right.
You know, making sure that you're caring for yourself, because it puts stress on you.
Right. You don't want that anxiety to turn on you.
Well, it does, frequently.
Yep.
I mean, it's not uncommon for anxiety to kind of be a bit contagious and other
yes.
people in the family start to get anxious as well.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Just a few more questions.
Sure.
What other gatherings, groups, or events with mental health promotion or anxiety awareness does Adam participate in? This might have been answered a little bit briefly earlier, that you could recommend that we should check out. Are there calendar events or campaigns to be aware of?
Well, I'd certainly suggest that people check websites for the Canadian Mental Health Association, because we work in collaboration with CMHA throughout their regions, which is throughout all of Canada, but specifically in Manitoba.
They are very big in housing here. Wonderful
Okay.
work with creating integrated housing.
Wonderful.
Not
Well,
so much
they also,
with advocacy though. There is again short on resources. So yes.
Yes. Well, I think that each region has their own circumstances in terms of what their resources are. But I know that in Winnipeg, CMHA has all kinds of courses, and you know, they're extremely informative and valuable. Mood Disorders has representatives throughout the province, and we work closely with Mood Disorders. Mood Disorders focuses primarily upon depression and bipolar disorder.
That's right. Yeah.
So Mood Disorders website is another good website to check. The Manitoba Schizophrenia Society is another good one. We all work in collaboration with each other. There's the Mental Health Education Resource Center, which is located here in Winnipeg, and provides a wide range of reading material and videos and all kinds of things at no charge to the public. There's also a very, very informative website that I would recommend people look at for more information, not about events so much, but about really good information regarding anxiety, and that is Anxiety BC. It's an excellent website, very, very informative, and has just a wealth of information on there. There is also Anxiety Disorders Association of Canada, which is another website. There's an excellent website for depression, very factual, research-based, easy-to-read fact sheets, and that is depression.informedchoices.ca. So those are just some of the resources and some of the organizations that I would really highly recommend. And of course, very much invite people to contact us for more information, because we do work in collaboration with a lot of other organizations.
Well, just before I ask you to provide some information on your contacts for Adam, have I missed anything that you would like to mention about anxiety?
Well, I think that what I would like to say is that I would highly encourage people who are feeling that anxiety is creating a problem in their life or in the life of a family member or a friend to look for support and to reach out and not struggle and suffer in silence and alone, because there are many, many people who have had experience with anxiety, who are in recovery, and who are leading rich, productive, satisfying lives, and anxiety is no longer creating havoc in their life. And because anxiety is treatable, I'd really, really encourage people to make the phone call, go to the website, and to take that first step so that they get intervention as early as possible.
All right, thank you very much for that advice. Okay, so could you just please give us finally just give us some information on the website for Adam and the local contact number for the Westman region, please?
Sure. Our website is www.adam.mb.ca, and our contact information for Westman is, the telephone number is 725-8550. The email is westman@adam.mb.ca. People can also contact our head office in Winnipeg at 925-0600, or email us at adam@adam.mb.ca.
Well, thank you very much. Mary Williams, Executive Director, Anxiety Disorders Association of Manitoba.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
That was Mary Williams, Executive Director, Anxiety Disorders Association of Manitoba. Contact the Westman office for Adam. Please call 204-725-8550. Follow Adam on Facebook or visit the website at www.adam.mb.ca. I hope you found this episode on the topic of anxiety informative and helpful. You have been listening to Reduce the Stigma. My name is Jan Eck, wishing you the best of mental well-being.
You are listening to Reduce the Stigma, CJ106 docu-series funded by Community Radio Fund of Canada, narrated by Jan Eck, produced by Jan Eck, Matthew Higgs, Tyler Addison, and Janice Brohl.